I'm Jan with Jan Patek Quilts, and I do needle turn applique. And what we're focusing on this month is part of our dual purpose block of the month. You can either make the full size quilt, block by block, or you can do a table stand that fits on our little quilt that fits on here and has the log cabin on the back, or you can do both. I'm doing both. Anyway, Americana, if any of you know my work at all, is one of my favorite subjects to deal with. My father was career military. My father-in-law was career military. In fact, we just watched a whole bunch of stuff on D-Day my husband taped, and my father-in-law was commander of a minesweeper. So if you've watched any of that stuff, that's what he did, and he got a Bronze Star for sweeping a harbor during a typhoon in the east. Anyway, we're going to do this really cool eagle here. We've got him in two ways. We've got him in the little table stand quilt. We've got him in a pattern, and because of D-Day, I made a different little kit. I always like to have something different for the 4th of July each year, and I know it's going to be past the 4th of July before this gets up, but you know what? We have one every year. So you can make one for next year, or just plain old, I have Americana in my house all year round. And right now this is available only in a kit. It will come out as a pattern later with the next fabric line. Okay, the tricky part to doing our little eagle here is not necessarily the arrows and olive branch, which is what you'd think, but it's in getting him together so you can put him, or it could be her, come to think of it. Anyway, getting it together so you can applique it to the background. If you have trouble with the arrows, you can look at Parasol Princess up there for how to do like her parasol handle. You use the same technique to do this. We've done lots of things on points. And the olive branch, you can look at the center block of Eagles and Roses because it shows you how to do stems and leaves. But that leaves us with the eagle. So the first thing we're going to do when we make the eagle, you use your freezer paper applique instructions, and there's a whole little YouTube video on it. And we're going to cut out the wing, and we're going to sew all the secondary pieces in place that go there. So that's the first thing you do in the layer. You'll sew your red markings on the wings and on the tail. Okay, now we've got to put him together, and he's not all one big piece because he's made up of different fabrics. Cut your shield out, and the top of the shield, I was very nice. I didn't put little stars on there, ladies. You should be happy. Anyway, and applique the top to the bottom and then baste the whole thing under because we need to know exactly what size it's going to be and how it's going to fit. Then we're going to take all of our other pieces and baste the parts that are going to be touching other parts so that we will know how to put him together. Okay, so I basted under the ends of, well, I guess you'd say the bottom of his head, and you should have the eye on here for that. If the instructions on that go back to May and the little teeny circle. It's the same thing, small circle. They get intimidating, but they're really pretty easy. So baste that under. You've basted under all of this. Now you've got the wings you have to deal with. I've already basted that under, but on this one, but on this you need to clip the inside curves. And then remember when you baste that you always put your knot where you can grab it and pull it out. If you don't, you can cut it out, but it's easier to pull the whole string out. So you just baste under, nice long loose stitch. You've clipped the inside curves Okay, so that's basted under. Now, this is an inside curve too. Okay, now we need to put a knot in here. Put it around your finger and pull. And once again, you don't want to start your knot here because this is going to be under the shield. So you start it out here. Now, if you goof and do it, like I said, you can just cut it off at the base, but it's just easier if you remember. And sometimes I remember and sometimes I don't. Okay, now. So now we have all our little pieces together and generally how they're going to go. All right, now if you look at the picture and if you look at this, the picture will show you how to lay it out. This comes down, this is going to fit, but see why I said it's kind of tricksy, because you're going to sew this to this, you're going to sew this to this, this is going to be sewed to here. Now his legs, which you have basted under at the top, will go right here, and that'll give you a spread. You're going to have to move this out a little. You can get the feeling because you're going to have to put an olive branch here. Now it goes across here, so you don't have to have room for a whole olive branch here. Okay, and then you're going to put that there, and the arrows are going to be there. And then you can see here, there's your line, so that you've drawn when you drew your pattern. Okay, now I would take, oh wait, his tail, you need to bring it up here. And when you sewed this one on, baste this under first, because then when you sew this down, sew your red down, it'll be in the right place. Okay, now that's going to go right there. In fact, I think if I were you, yeah, I would. I'm not sure I put a knot in that. I don't think I did. But that's okay, I'll do it now. I would baste this under. And as you can see, I tend to want to, when I'm doing the basting, do it in a different color so I can see the threads and pull them out easier. There. Red, green, whatever. Okay. You can do it in blue if you have extremely good eyes, and I have okay eyes, but they're not there. Now that's going to fit under there. That's the way the whole thing is going to go together. Now, I would baste these pieces together before I sewed it down. So it's one big piece, because particularly with this, I'm going to hand quilt it, and I'm going to want to cut out behind all this. So I can get teeny stitches across here and teeny stitches across here. Well, as teeny as I tend to get. But yeah, when you go to do that, if this piece of fabric isn't behind it, you can get much smaller stitches, because you are going to have batting and your backing behind it. Okay, so now baste this whole thing together, slowly but surely, and you have your eagle. Then you put on, sew down the arrows, sew down the olive branch, and you're down to his feet. Okay, cut out your pattern piece. On the bigger one, let freedom ring, that's a much bigger block. It's a much bigger eagle. I was looking to make sure that was the name of it. Because this is Flight, Wings of Freedom. This is Let Freedom Ring. Okay, on this one, we appliqued the foot down because it's a lot bigger. But on this teeny little guy, yeah, that's kind of silly. So just cut your pattern out and then trace around it in pencil or pale pink marker, and then using a stem stitch and embroidery floss, just outline his foot, his claw, talon. It's a talon, really. Outlaw his talon that's holding the arrows and the olive branch. and then you will have your eagle table stand, which really can stay up all year. Now, to recap our Wings of Freedom Americana block, you need to, of course, cut everything out with freezer paper applique like you do. Sew down, applique down your marking pieces. When you sew down the tail marking piece, make sure you baste under the bottom of the tail. Then you sew the top to the shield, and then you baste the entire shield down. You baste down all the edges that are going to go under something else, the ends. Not the whole wing, just the edge. Not the whole head, just the edge. And lay it out on your background to make sure it looks right and works right. Stick the legs under, stick the tail under. Now baste the whole thing together, because particularly if you're doing the table stand quilt and you're going to do quilting, hand quilting on it, you want to cut out behind the whole thing. So baste him all together, then applique him down. After you've appliqued him down, put on your arrows and your olive branch, and then lay your pattern piece for your talon on top, trace around him, and do a stem stitch with 2 strands of cotton floss. So, we hope you've enjoyed this tutorial on Wings of Freedom, a neat piece of Americana from Jan Patek Quilts. If you have, please subscribe to our channel. Thanks, and have a good day.